Hi, welcome back to Travel Tips. This is Katie.
And this is Lori.
Today we're going to be walking you through some of the ins and outs of navigating this city like a New Yorker. Some of the things that we're going to cover is just the general etiquette of getting on and off the subway, being on the sidewalk, particularly in a group or in a tour, crosswalks, crossing the Brooklyn Bridge, some of the major sites and spots you might be encountering on your trip. I know New Yorkers always seem like they're in a hurry and they're always ready to just barrel through and walk right into you. But this will help you just kind of move a little bit better through the city and more with the flow of traffic, and it'll make you feel more comfortable.
And I think one thing to understand about New Yorkers is they are just fast moving.
They are.
They're fast moving. They're to the point.
We have I think a reputation sometimes of not being very polite. And I really don't find that. I've lived here for 15 and a half years. And I actually don't. I think New Yorkers are really nice people in general.
I grew up here. Yeah.
I think they're very, very nice. But Lori's right. They're in a hurry. They're on the move. New Yorkers are always going somewhere.
Yeah, and I think too, because we're rough speaking, that people mistaken that for being kind of not so nice, but there are very friendly people. People even come up to me. I stop for a moment to answer an email on my phone, and someone goes, "Do you need help?" I'm good, but
I'm good,
thank you. That's so nice of you.
So let's talk about getting on and off the subway, because I think this is definitely an area where New Yorkers can get a little crabby very quickly. Yeah. When we're on the train and getting on and off as part of our commute, we definitely like things to keep moving. So the most important thing to know, I think, is let everybody get off the train before you get on. Yeah, and you want to stand to the sides of the door. I know it seems like you should be right in front of the door and ready to get on, but there's almost always going to be a lot of people coming off.
It's just, it's a safety thing.
It is. It makes the trains run a little quicker and smoother. We have fewer delays. It is a safety thing. So definitely pick one side or the other of the door. I understand absolutely if you're in a family or in a group, you want everybody to stay together. Just definitely kind of split up a little bit if you need to, just for that 1 minute to get to either side of the door and let people get off all the way.
Right. Holding the door is actually a finable offense.
It is. I know you will see a lot of people do it, and I'm going to be honest, I've done it myself. We've all done it. It is actually very dangerous. It holds up the subway. It is a finable offense, and it really is a safety issue.
Right.
You do not want the doors to close on a body part or even on your purse or your backpack. So if it looks like you really cannot fit in all the way, or you are not going to make it through the doors, please just wait for the next train. It really is better.
Another thing, sometimes people drop things on the train tracks. Mm-hmm. And this is a huge safety thing. I think tourists really need to know, don't get it. Right. Don't jump down there and get it. The train is not going to be able to stop for you. And if the person even sees you on the tracks, don't get it. Go find someone that works there to help you get whatever it is. I mean, if it's a cell phone or something, but if it's, your lunch, just kiss it goodbye and get a different lunch.
So once you're on the subway car, cars can be very crowded. It's just a part of being on the New York City subway, if it's rush hour in particular. Yeah. If you're wearing a backpack, it is generally considered the best etiquette to just take it off and maybe put it right in between your feet where you're standing. That way there's a little more space for somebody to come in. Lots of people have to share and hold on to the poles and the bars. So sometimes I get on the train and I see people doing a full body lean on the pole. A lot of people have to use that and share that. So you do want to make sure you're grabbing on, absolutely hang on.
And if someone is doing the full body lean, go in there and grab the pole. They'll move.
Oh yeah, they will.
Always. They'll move. So, same thing like someone has their bag on the seat. You start to sit on that bag, they'll move it.
Bringing me in, my next thing I was going to say, please do not put bags and things like that on a seat. There are so few seats anyway.
Yeah. If it's an empty train, it's different. But when it's busy, it's just rude. Yeah. But I don't know how many times I would go to sit on that bag and they'll move it.
It happens. So you just want to kind of be aware of everybody around you and make sure we're all working together to keep things moving as smoothly as we can. You already know how to navigate the subway from our other podcast, so we just wanted you to have a little better idea of what to do once you're on.
One more thing. Don't eat on the subway. Yeah. especially if it's food. That it's an enclosed car, and everyone's gonna smell your food, and it's just it's kind of rude.
I do drink coffee on the subway.
That's different, but I mean, somebody open up their lunch and starts chowing down on which I think is gross. But
I don't do that.
But it's like if you took a plane to get to New York, you understand. It's the same kind of concept.
All right, so once you're off the subway and you've gotten to where you're going and you're just going to start walking around, we already said New Yorkers are always in a hurry. That is just the reality, is a lot of New Yorkers walk very, very quickly.
Yeah, even when you're not in a hurry, we're just fast walkers.
We are not even slightly suggesting you need to walk as fast as all the people around you. That's okay if that's not the way you're doing it. We want you to take your time and take pictures and do all of that stuff. But if you know you're going to be moving a little slower than the general flow of foot traffic, just try to get yourself to one side of the sidewalk or the other. And again, same. We love that you are excited about the city and you want to take pictures. We're glad. Yeah. We definitely rely on tourism in this city. But same deal if you need to stop and take a picture, just one side or the other. Yeah. I always see people, more so since the Instagram era, they'll stop in the middle of the sidewalk and then want people to take like 5 photos of them so they can pick one they like.
Yeah.
Unless it's a completely empty sidewalk. You can do it. You just might get yelled at by a lot of people.
And odds are people will stop for a moment for you to take that picture, but you go on to that second picture. They're going to walk through. But I've noticed, too, when people are taking pictures or they're pulling out their map because they're lost, there's no warning. They just stop. Yeah. And you're behind them, and you can't help it. You end up plowing into that tourist, not because you meant to, but because you weren't expecting them to stop.
Right.
Yeah. So step over to the side for your own safety.
Right. Just kind of be aware. And this is also something that you'll run into, whether you're on your own or whether you're with a tour group. Something I feel like I sound like a broken record. I tell my tour groups over and over and over again, like, please step over here, please step over here, please step over here. Yeah. But this is even just if you're traveling around on your own, but maybe with a larger family or a larger group of people. You take up some space. Yeah. So we just want to kind of be aware, definitely when we have tour groups, of making sure we're condensing ourselves as much as possible. Yeah. And not blocking the entrance to a store or a restaurant or somebody's front door to their apartment. That's one of the things I think I see the most. And I think it's because sometimes apartment building doors are pretty nondescript. You don't necessarily even realize that's what it is. But it is the front door to someone's home. Yeah. So you do just want to kind of keep an eye out and make sure you're keeping doorways clear, I would say, is a good and general rule.
And stairs to homes and buildings is actually private property.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not part of the public.
I know a lot of people like to go and sit on the steps of all the brownstones in New York City, and you might have a kindly homeowner that's fine with that, but they're certainly well within their rights to ask you to get off the stairs as well, because it is their private property. Yep. Keeping to one side or the other and moving with the flow of traffic, and this is generally important, especially if you're in the more highly trafficked pedestrian areas like Times Square,
Lower Manhattan,
the Brooklyn Bridge, very, very important, particularly because that path is so narrow.
I think we should talk about the Brooklyn Bridge, because I think it can be quite dangerous for tourists, because they're not so the Brooklyn Bridge pathway has the walkway and it has a bike path.
Yes.
And unless you're paying attention to the painted line, a lot of tourists just walk right onto the bike path, and those bikers are going fast.
They are. When people are biking in New York City, they're generally going very quickly, and this is everywhere in New York, not just the Brooklyn Bridge. We actually have more and more designated bike lanes in New York every single year. They're trying to make it a more cycling-friendly city, which I think is a good addition.
Right.
But you do really have to keep an eye out. People do go very quickly, and on the bridge in particular, I think you see it the most. And it's because people want that perfect shot. I feel
bad for some bikers.
Issues.
They'll start ringing their bell to warn the person, but oh my gosh, that's just nerve-wracking when I see that, because they're going, I don't know how many miles an hour, but and then all of a sudden a tourist just jumps right out onto the
So you just want to kind of keep an eye out. And in a lot of spots, and I think the Brooklyn Bridge is a great example, there's, that one spot or that one corner in particular that's the really, really perfect shot. I would say in consideration for your fellow travelers, obviously get your pictures, take your pictures, but then step to the side so that somebody else can enjoy the shot as well. We don't have any official lines or anybody like organizing this, but it's just the nice thing to do so that everybody can enjoy it. So I definitely recommend keeping an eye out, maybe even offer to step in and take a picture of them. They'll probably do the same for you. I see that all the time on my tours.
Oh, also, I would like to point out in Central Park, you can ride your bike around Central Park. You can't ride it on the walking paths, but you can ride it on the bike loop. But also people training for marathons ride their bikes there. So they're going like 40 miles an hour.
People go very, very quickly in Central Park. It's definitely one of the areas where you do want to pay attention to the bike lanes as well.
Yeah.
You know, generally when you're out and about in the city on a street with bike lanes, the cyclists are going to follow the vehicular traffic rules.
Yes.
So it's not as much of an issue. I think Central Park people aren't necessarily looking for it as much. But we do have accidents in Central Park. Typically because somebody wasn't really paying attention.
Yeah.
So always keep an eye out.
So that actually kind of like a bike. I think it's really important you just brought up. Bikes, if you decide to ride a bike in New York City, you do have to abide by the laws that the cars are. So you have to stop at a red light. You can't go through a red light. I mean, you can, but you risk your life.
Right. So you do want to pay attention. I think biking is becoming better. Like I said, there's more bike lanes. We have a bike share program. So if you're here, especially at the nice time of year, it can be a really cool way to get around New York. I mean, you see so much doing that. But you just want to make sure you are aware of the general safety issues and rules that you'd want to be following.
You can't ride your bike on the sidewalk.
No.
I mean, it's really, I wouldn't do it. I mean,
sometimes you see
anywhere. Yeah, I mean, I would say mostly you see you're going to see New Yorkers and tourists go through red lights.
Right.
The New Yorkers at least are more skilled at it, and the tourists are not so much. And I'm like fanning myself how many times I've seen a tourist go through a major intersection and almost gets hit by a car as they stumble through.
All right, well, since Lori has palpitations, we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on to the last thing we wanted to cover, just here at the end. And this is something I feel like I get questions about so often on my tours. Not about my tours, but about just what to do in general while people are here, because they have anxiety about it. And that's about tipping, because depending on where you're coming from, it's not necessarily a customary thing to do, or not to the extent that it's done here. And I think it does make people feel anxious, how to know what to do.
So just a real quick background. In the United States, especially in restaurants more so than anywhere else, the customer is really kind of paying the wage.
Yes, for better or for worse.
So the restaurant does pay that server that's bringing you your food some money, but it really isn't that much, and it's not minimum wage. So it's kind of this understanding in our culture that you're also contributing to that.
Right.
But the server also knows that their money depends on how well they perform. I mean, that's same with taxi drivers and bellhops and tour guides, and there's a hairstylist. We have a big tipping culture in the United States, and especially in New York City.
Yeah, in New York City in particular, I think. More than a lot of places. I think, as somebody that lives in the U.S., I was accustomed to doing that in restaurants and things like that. Less so, I would say, with, everywhere. Feeling like it was. That's not to say that it's the same amount everywhere. The typical amount for what's considered a good restaurant tip, I would say, is anywhere from 18 to 22%. Which I know is really high compared to a lot of places. So that is what's considered a good tip.
Well, so in cultures that don't have the tipping, or it's not an emphasis, they're paying their servers more money. Just so you understand what's happening, what the difference would be. They're making more money per hour than they are in the United States. Yeah.
So it does seem a little weird to people, but if you've ever wondered why this is a thing, that's why. Taxi cabs, if you're ever in one of those, or even in an Uber, that is generally expected as well. I don't think that it's expected to the same degree as, or not to the same amount or percentage as a restaurant. But typically there is an expectation around tipping. Same with, a bellhop at a hotel, or a concierge at a hotel, certainly. If they're going to go out and do something like get you a cab or something like that, it is generally expected.
Now, a lot of Midtown Manhattan, especially Times Square area, will include the tip in the price. They have to state that on the menu.
They do. If you see something that says grat, that's short for gratuity. That means they have already included it.
And most likely
they
because
should say something about it, but if they don't, just know that that's what that is. So it's something to look for.
It'll probably be on the menu or something telling you that it's going to be included. And I think it's because they have a high number of tourists that come from countries that don't have tipping cultures.
And I know actually somebody that worked in a restaurant in Times Square for several years. It was an automatic thing a lot of the time in a lot of restaurants, and certainly if you're with a larger group.
Yes.
I think is where it's more common. If it's a group of 5 or 6 or more, it's something you would see on there. So keep an eye out for that because that's very well something that may have been added to your bill. Something else to know if you're here, especially in the winter time, New York loves a coat check. I hate coat checks, but they are very popular here. Yeah. They will ask to take your coat. You don't have to. You can hang on to it. But that's another place where it is generally expected that you will tip when you go pick up your coat at the end. It's not much. We're talking about $1 or $2 for picking up a coat. I would say $1 per item you give them is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But that is something where there is an expectation around that.
And I guess when in doubt, always Google.
Yeah, I mean, you can always look it up. Most of it is available. I know, again, it is a strange thing, I think, to a lot of people what a tipping heavy culture New York is. But again, as far as getting through here with ease and feeling comfortable and feeling like you're doing this as the locals do, it's something to be aware of. We hope that this helps a little bit navigating New York and feeling comfortable. We hope you tune in next time for travel tips.
Bye.